Hello again. I realise that I have been talking rather a lot about refugees and asylum seekers from Ukraine over the last few days, and it is probably time to stop doing so. Before I leave the subject, though, I thought the viewers might be amused to see how a marvellous dodge known in the traders bait and switch has been played upon them. In bait and switch, you offer for sale some item which the buyer wants, and it's at a really cheap knockdown price. Then, when you have the money, you switch it for something quite worthless. So you sometimes see this in fake auctions where people think they're buying a valuable television or mobile telephone, but when they get the box home and open it, it contains some piece of cheap rubbish, not worth the money they paid. This is what we call bait and switch. Here's the bait, the thing you think you're getting, and then there's a switch and you end up with something completely different. This is exactly the game being played with Ukrainian refugees. Most people, when they hear about Ukrainian refugees, assume that these are Ukrainians. It sounds logical, but that's not the case at all. To deal with the crisis, the European Union has for the first time activated a procedure signed into law in 2001 and known as Temporary Protection Directive, or TPD, 2001/55 EC. This was introduced after the Yugoslav wars and gives immediate protection to persons who need it, and to avoid overwhelming member states' asylum systems, a unified approach is adopted so that the refugees are spread evenly all around Europe. There are three categories specified as having the right to enter the European Union immediately now that the Temporary Protection Directive has been initiated. They can enter the European Union with no questions asked. They will be distributed to all member states, and although Britain's not in the EU, they will be taking their refugees and asylum seekers from this same pool as that established by the TPD. I hope that's all plain. I hope I've made all this clear enough. The categories who can at once enter Europe are Ukrainian citizens residing in Ukraine before 24th of February 2022, and this includes third country nationals or stateless persons who were legally residing in Ukraine prior to 24th of February and who hold permanent resident status in Ukraine, and also third country nationals or stateless persons who were legally residing in Ukraine while holding any other legal resident status, e.g. students, short-term work permit holders, etc. These people must be unable to return safely to their own countries. The second category is third country nationals or stateless persons legally resident in Ukraine who were displaced from Ukraine as of 24th of February 2022 and who benefited from international protection or equivalent national protection in Ukraine. These were asylum seekers and refugees who just happened to be in Ukraine. The third category is eligible family members of the previous two categories, as long as the family already existed in Ukraine at the time of the circumstances surrounding the mass exodus from the country. Okay, with all the millions of people crossing borders now, nobody will be able to fool around trying to establish which of those so-called third country or stateless persons, that is to say people that are leaving Ukraine but are not Ukrainian, which of them can safely return to his or her country. They will simply be covered by the Temporary Protection Directives and then help to go to any part of the EU. To see what I'm talking about here, either look at the thumbnail to this video or click on the link in the description to this video. There you will find a photograph entitled "Refugees from Ukraine Arrive in Poland." I suggest that viewers watching this on a tablet or laptop enlarge that photograph and examine carefully the refugees from Ukraine. Notice anything about them? First, look at the two men in the centre of the picture. These look to me as though they're from the Middle East, either Arabs or Iranians. Then note that of the 30 or so people in the picture, no fewer than a third are black. Then look at the woman wearing a hijab and a couple of other Asian women. I do not believe that a single one of these refugees from Ukraine are actually Ukrainian citizens. I think they're all either third country or stateless persons. And they are now in Europe and they can move about freely. They've been given the right to enter Europe. As I say, the British are going to be drawing the refugees whom they intend to invite into the country from that same general pool as the European Union. British people are already looking at photographs of Ukrainians and information about them on social media sites, and then contacting the Home Office and vouching for these people and offering them a home in this country. Guess what? These are the same gullible types who fall for romance scams. Does anybody really not realise that using photographs of other people is easy enough to do on the internet? By the time that the individual has arrived in this country and been waved through customs, riding on the wave of compassion which is motivating a lot of people at the moment, it'll be too late to chuck him out. He will vanish. Why bother risking crossing the channel in a rowing boat when the European Union and Britain will fly you into the country for nothing? In a year or so, this is going to be cited as a terrible disaster, and everybody will be blaming each other for what a cock-up it's all turned into. You heard it here first. This is one of the worst ideas that our Prime Minister has ever come up with. And the competition for that position is, as I'm sure we know, pretty stiff.